Hello. Hello, everyone. I am Rebecca from I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and welcome to the October 2020 ChemKnits Dialogue live stream. I am just going to make I don't know why I froze. I'm going to make a quick Instagram story update, and let's see. You can watch how awkward I am at this. So, nope. I am so awkward. Okay. Hey everyone, join me live on YouTube right now for the October 2020 ChemKnits Dialogue live stream. Hey everyone, join me live on YouTube right now. Okay, that's done. But anyway, all right, everyone. I hope that we're ready for a fun day of dyeing yarn today. I am really excited. Stream markers are tied. Oh, I didn't. Ooh, I can mark the stream. Interesting. YouTube has changed things, so I am. There we go. But anyway. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to dye some fall-inspired yarn. This is, I guess, the birthday of ChemKnits Dialogue, because the very first one I did was October 2 years ago. And the inspiration back then was actually really similar. I picked a tree that had this gorgeous green to orange and red gradient of leaf colors, and I dyed some colorways on some sock blanks, and it was a lot of fun. And since then, I guess this is our 25th inspiration photo, and I actually picked 2 photos this month. So let me show the other one. So one is that gorgeous sort of almost mystical feeling fall scene, but the other, I just grabbed some leaves from my yard. Leaves that had fallen, some I plucked, like that beautiful sort of Cabernet colored is my forsythia plant in my yard. So there's so many colors that I wanted to pull in and draw from, and it was fun that I could find all these colors just in my small little yard. So I have this photo available for you as well. But if you notice at the top, I picked the same, I've got the same looking color palette at the top with the colors that I'm personally drawn to and want to work with today. Now, if this is your first ChemKnits Dialogue, I will be dyeing some yarn, probably a couple colorways inspired by this photo. And then in about a month, or 5-ish weeks, I will share a recap of the finished yarn from this live stream, but I will also feature some of the yarn that you have dyed inspired by the same photograph. So if you would like to potentially be featured in that recap, share the yarn that you dye inspired by this photo on Instagram with the hashtag ChemKnitsDialogue, or reply to this photo right here, this mystical photo, on the ChemKnits Facebook page. I should have that linked in the video description, and I'm now checking. Yes, I have it linked down in the video description, so that way you can post that as a comment on the public Facebook page. And so those are the ways to submit your pictures, and then I'll pull a bunch and include, because I think it's really fun to see how different people create similar and different colorways, starting with one inspiration. And good morning everyone. Yeah, this color palette, I mean, so when I go for pictures, I go back and forth between looking through pictures, seeing something that really sparks me, or sometimes I have more of an idea of something I want to create, and then I go looking for that picture that fits a mood in my head. And so sometimes I pick the colors because I want to challenge myself to work with colors that maybe are not in my comfort zone. And today, I really wanted to play with a bunch of these fall colors and have it feel fall, but not necessarily Halloween. So that's the goal. That is the goal today. but welcome, welcome. Yeah, the colors are really, really rich. And so today we're going to start, and I'm going to swatch with dry powder, some colors in the stove, and then we'll narrow down. I'm not sure if I'm going to do 5 colors. So if I want to try to go for all 5 that I've sort of picked along that top of the picture. I know I want like a forest green moment as a little bit. I know I want like a deep burgundy-ish red and orange and a yellow. I'm unsure if I want to add brown or if brown might just happen. So we'll see. We'll see how things go. Hello, everyone. Yes. All right. So let's get started. I am going to turn off my head. Okay, and I am going to shrink. That was not the right one to shrink. This one. Oh. And you guys get to see me being awkward on camera. I'm going to shrink that up there. And so actually right here on my stove, you can see the drying leaves that I had photographed. And so this color in particular really, really excited me because it's a color that I don't always think that I see outside, but we do see it. And so I thought it was just fun to grab those. Now, as for our colors, I need to grab my notebook because I'm going to need to write this down. First thing in the morning, my brain is a little better than in the afternoons, but okay, so this is October. Die along. Okay, and so just to show you all, when I do these swatching, I have to change the computer so I can actually see. When I'm doing these swatching videos, I draw myself a little diagram, and then like I'll be like, this is me right here, and then as I put the powders on, I'll write the colors around the outside just to keep track of where they are sort of spatially in the pan. And so this method of swatching is not as reproducible necessarily as, say, doing the color mixing, making everything at about a 1% depth of shade, something like the triangle exercise. But by doing this, especially if I want to play directly with the dry powders, this is just a way to see how the colors perform and to get a quick sense, at least wet, how the hues compare to one another so I can pick the exact colors that I want. And so that is often a way I like to start with these. I have a lot of colors in this like family. I don't think Berry Crush is one I'm going to use at all. I might not even swatch it, but Espresso Bean could be the right color, but maybe I wanted a little more red, so maybe like either the Aubergine or Cabernet. Plum Dandy I think is probably too pink, but you don't know until you try it. And so that is what's going on. And I need to get some yarn and spill water all over my floor. That is okay. All right, we've got 100 grams. This is Knit Pick Stroll fingering weight yarn. It is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And I do have affiliate links down in the video description if you want to get any of the yarn I'm using or tools and equipment and things like that. Affiliate links mean that I earn commission when you make purchases. So it's a sort of like a win-win. And I cannot see the chat, so I need to move this over. I'm really hoping that this turns out. I'm excited to see how it'll turn out too. Let's get some water. Let's go ahead and add 3 tablespoons of white vinegar. I pre-soaked the yarn already, but, and what? Oh, probably because I was touching the, got a little bit of pink. And I'm going to add, I guess, maybe that was about 4 or 5 cups of water, approximately. Sometimes I pay really, really close attention to the amount of acid and the amount of water in the pan. And other times it isn't that important to me. And today we just want to be able to look at the relative levels of the different colors. And sometimes I will even do this kind of swatching with everything cold, just because then I'm not introducing steam into the environment. But today I'm going to heat things up, because that way I will sooner be able to free up this surface so that way we can dye the colorways in my other pan. So just off to the side. Yes, and feel free, since we are live, feel free to leave questions in the chat. And since I'm using dedicated dye equipment today, I will be wearing my respirator mask. It has P100 filters, safety glasses, and gloves while I'm dealing with the powders. I haven't checked. Actually, I can sit back down because we're heating up. And turn my face back on. I haven't checked recently to see if the respirators are back in stock at Dharma Training Company, but I do have a blog post on my website where I talk about respirator masks that other indie dyers recommend and where you might be able to source them, because there were, at least at the time that I made that post, sources where individuals could buy that kind of PPE. So, what? Why did that? I don't understand. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. Did the stream end? I cannot, all of a sudden the views went to 0 when I set that down. Oh, it's working, I'm still here? Okay. But like, yeah, it's saying that there's no one here. And I was like, what? What happened? Okay. Just checking the, let's set that down. Okay, so that's working. All right, thank you. Okay, it bounced back. It was just the analytics. It was like there's 0, and I'm like, did it go away? Did my internet go out? Like, thank you, everyone. Okay, but it looks like we're heating up. I'm trying to think. Oh. Okay, there are still a few ChemKnits Hanukkah samplers available in my Etsy shop for pre-order. I should have the link at the top of the video description. I will be releasing some more as ready to ship once I finish wrapping and getting everything packaged up. I am in the wrapping hundreds of mini skeins phase right now, which is actually so much fun. And so I'm hoping, still going to hit the goal of end of October, early November, I think, for the shipping of the first batch, and then I will release more. So that was good. Yeah, no, I mean, I could see that no one in the chat was saying anything, but it, like, on the analytics, all of a sudden it went down to 0, which usually only happens if, like, the stream fails. And so and normally if something is messed up, then I see people in the chat telling me, like, oh, things are broken. And so then I was like, yeah, that was my reaction. All right, I'm going to stand up and hide my face again. Okay. So far, the computer seems to be doing pretty well.
All right, let's get suited up. So I will get more muffled because I've got my respirator on. Now this is nice and warm, but I am going to reduce it to low because I want to remove a lot of that steam. And I'm going to get a pan for dirty spoons. Okay, so let's start with, I hope I have enough spoons. Let's start with an orange. Okay, this is Saffron Spice. I'm just taking a little bit on a spoon, coming in and just sort of seeing what this color wants to be, letting it live its best life. And then I'm going to write it down. Now the next orange is new to me. I'm actually going to use the back side of the spoon. This is Blazing Orange. Oh, so I definitely added less of it than I did of the Saffron Spice. But the Blazing Orange is a brighter orange. Saffron Spice is a little bit, I would say it has a little bit more brown in it, if that makes sense. Like this, it's also like the spread is a little more yellow. I like both, but I think that I'm going to reserve judgment for how the rest of the colors go. Okay. Next, this is Golden Poppy. Ooh, which is also, oh no, very, very orange. It is like, I mean, it is a yellow-orange color, but you can see that that yet more yellow comes out around the edges. I actually really like that. And then this is a new to me color in Honey Mustard. Ooh, that is really nice. That is really nice. So the Honey Mustard definitely has some brown undertones to it. Let me write this down. So I suppose from the swatches, I should have known that the Golden Poppy would be a little more orange than the Honey Mustard, but I actually think that all of these are really, really good fall candidates. It depends on, I think, how much yellow versus more of a yellow-orange I really want. Okay, so let's see. So now, this is the green I think I want. This is Forest Green. It is green that I really like. I probably won't use a ton of it, but let's just put it down here. So it's got a bit like, it kind of goes a little bit teal when it spreads out, but I have a feeling that mixed in with some of these colors, I mean, it brings that sort of like evergreen, sprucey kind of green into it. So I think it'll be nice. green. Okay, let's go for some of our browns next. Here's one of my favorite browns ever. This is Pecan Brown. And I like it because it is a very, very true, deep brown. Some other browns can tend to lean very purple, and one of those I'll pull up in a minute. But this, oh boy, this is a fluffy one. This is a new one for me. This is Teddy Bear Brown. And, ooh, oh, I like that. So Pecan Brown is a very cool toned brown. Teddy Bear Brown is warmer. So here are the swatches from the poster at Dharma. They are nearly indistinguishable. But I can say that, better write this down, Pecan, Teddy Bear. I can say for sure that the edge of the pecan is more ashy, and it's a warmer, almost red tone around Teddy Bear. And now, when it comes to another brown, this is Espresso Bean, which I'm going to get a little more. Whoops. So the Espresso Bean, see how purpley it is? I don't know if that'll show up on camera. But that is actually fairly purple and a bit too purple for what I want. That's sort of what its swatch looks like. Okay, but now let's see how it compares to, here's our aubergine, our eggplanty color. Taking just a little bit of powder. Ooh! That is definitely too purple. I want redder than that, but that is an eggplant purple. Yeah, that is beautiful. I love that color. Okay. Let's try Cabernet. Ooh, this might be the one. That might be the one that I want. That's a beautiful, I mean, it really does look like its name. It looks like wine. The Cabernet. And then I have Plum Dandy. So Cabernet I've never used before. I've never used Plum Dandy either. Which, it's hard for me to see it, so I'll have to take off the safety glasses. It does feel, it's slightly more red or pink. Slightly. Okay, and then finally, I have Berry Crush, which will be brighter, but yeah, that's way too pink. But I wanted to pull that in. Okay, so let's see. I did Cabernet, Plum Dandy, Berry Crush. Okay, and let me step back. Okay, everything is closed. closed. So let me see. The colors are showing up pretty well on camera, especially like the reds today. So let me see. Oh, this is hard. This is really hard. I want to see what you guys think. And I will pop my head in. Okay, what are you guys thinking? Used Pecan Brown last night, the honey mustard, yeah. Yeah, the Espresso Bean is a purple. It's definitely not brown, like at all. But, I mean, some browns do lean purple, like with food coloring and stuff, like a lot of, but yeah, the Espresso Bean is very, very purple. Hello, let's see. Oh, the honey mustard, yeah, that color is really, really awesome. And so let me think. I think I'm inclined, I wish that the forest green was more, actually, I mean, the color sort of fits fairly perfectly. I wish that it had a little more yellow in it, but that could be done with just layering. Ooh, this is hard. This is really, really hard. Okay. And especially because I know that the colors coming through on the monitor aren't quite the same as what I see in person. For brown, I think I definitely want to use that teddy bear brown. So that's the one at the center bottom, the little patch. I think that the pecan is a little too ashy. So, okay, I'm going to hide my face so I can do that. So, okay, so if I'm going to use brown, I want teddy bear. Okay, I'll move the picture over for red, and I think I'll also bring out my leaves. Just to see. Yeah, I think I want a little bit, not a lot, but I think that the Cabernet is that color that is in those leaves that I wanted to bring in. And making this really big, oh no, that's anyone moving. I'm pointing to the screen and you guys can't see. But, although, what was the one? Actually, maybe the Plum Dandy is a little better. Maybe where's my real leaf? I mean, that one's more red. So, yeah, actually, let's go for Plum Dandy. This is not the choice I thought I would make. Okay. And then, you like the one next to the Cabernet? Yeah, so I'm going for this one. It's a little hard. Okay, that's a little better. It's hard for me to see because it's in a bit of a shadow. But yeah, I think I like that hue. Ooh. Well, I guess it depends if I want the more like, because I don't want it to read too. I could do either. I could really do either. I don't want to do both because that's just too much, but I could really go either way. And I think, this is hard. I mean, clearly I could pull all of these, and that would not be bad. All of them really, really work. I think I'm going to go for saffron over blazing. And then I really like this orange though. So what I'm debating is, because I like the little bit of yellow that we get from not having a lot, I think that maybe I'm going to keep the honey mustard on deck. Honey mustard's on deck, Cabernet's on deck. I'm going to use Golden Poppy and Saffron Spice, but I'm going to try to use the Golden Poppy lightly so I get more of the yellow, because I like that yellow a little better than the yellow around the Golden Mustard. So that, I think, is my color selection for today. Oh, and of course I had these blocking the screen. So yes, so I think I'll point through again. I think that the Plum Dandy, so this guy right here, the Teddy Bear Brown, we've got our Forest Green, the Saffron Spice, the Golden Poppy, but then this honey mustard's on deck. Because I think if I use the Golden Poppy really sparingly, I'll get more of that yellow coming through, and I want more of the oranges. So we will see how this goes. Oh gosh, so the three, in the recap, and that reminds me, I need to take the, thank you, I'll take a picture of this. In the recap, I will be posting a picture of this with labels. And actually, let's scoot you over. And I will go ahead and post this to my Instagram story right now. I'm just at ChemKnits on Instagram, so that way you can see the colors a bit more the way that I see it, if that makes sense. But the webcam, oh no, the webcam is not doing that bad of a job today. The forest green, I want, like, I think actually it's going to be good layered with everything else. Okay, so now, this has been heating for a while, but where are my tongs? Because I also have to decide what I'm doing with this colorway, because I don't think that it is done. Ooh, seeing some nice spread. I'm going to let all this yarn soak up all of this color that's coming out. Oh, this is fun. It is fun not having things set completely and then moving it. It doesn't let us see the colors true, but this is actually giving us a lot of fun. And oh man, this is working so nicely to show like how, like, today we want our colors to muddy together a little bit. Now, the one downside of using a lot of, quote, new to me colors is that I don't know how they strike, how they perform. So that is all stuff that I will be learning alongside all of you, unless you've used these colors before. Okay, I'm going to add a bit of water. Ooh, I really, really, really like that something hadn't absorbed and then sort of spread all over. I was thinking about adding more color on here, but I actually really like it. It's not a balanced colorway. So for example, yes, you can see. So like there's this section which could be a few repeats. It doesn't really have that pink at all. And the green is not going to be in the yarn everywhere either. Actually, maybe I want to add a tiny bit more color. I don't want to overdo it, but let's add a tiny bit more color. Okay, where are my everything? A lot of times I don't want the colors to spread, but this is gorgeous. This is like what I want. Forest green is one of my favorite colors. Definitely one of my favorite colors ever. It's not hot at all. Oh my goodness, I'm going to need to turn up that heat. That's why we got so much spread. It's that there's a little bit of steam, but the water is really not warm. Adding a few hints. It's still not going to be a balanced colorway, but sometimes if there's a color that really sticks out in like a weird way, I just like to bring a little more in. So what I'm going to do now is, actually, we're going to turn this off. And shift it to the other burner. So we can heat this up, that'll sit and heat, and we can get ready for our next batch. Our actual batch. And I can go in and add more colors. There's no rule that says you can only add like 4 or 5 colors. Yeah, the number of colors that you add don't have to be related to like the yarn or anything like that. I just and there's actually no reason why I couldn't use exactly all those colors we just did in the swatch and have all those different hues in there. But given that they're going to mix together, sometimes it's just not necessary to add so many, if that makes sense. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tablespoons of white vinegar and about 8 cups of water. And I'm going to add the yarn. We'll let things start heating and we will chat. And I'm not spilling everywhere. So we played with dry powders in the last dye-along live stream. And so that part is going to be very similar today, but the thing that's going to be different is that instead of applying the colors in a more repeating way, I'm going to be a lot more random about it. Random like falling leaves. So right now I'm going to add 2 more tablespoons of white vinegar and I'm going to come in with more water. And that is because I want the colors to be able to spread and move and mix a little bit. Which is why like the brown might be one of the last colors that we do. We'll see, just because we'll see how everything sort of plays with each other. Okay, and I'm going to start heating this. Turn down the other one. Set a timer for 20 minutes for our other pan. And then I'm going to come and chat. So let's see. You'd use all the oranges and the blue. Yeah, so there was a bit of steam, but overall the pan was fairly cool because I didn't let it heat very long yet. So the reason, so here, so the photo of the leaves is so true, so the color of the dyes must be true. The difference with the photo of the leaves is when I
put a photo in the live stream, a photo that I've taken, I have a sense of what the colors are like. But that's not taken by the same camera that is the webcam. So that's why there's a difference in the colors. So like I could see here on my computer that the colors are showing up more muted from the webcam than what I see in person. So that's where that's coming from. Yes, the leaf, that it definitely wanted like a purpley red color versus like a red color. But yeah, so that's why I'm going back and forth between the Cabernet and the Plum Dandy. Like Cabernet. Can't see you should, oh, I need to turn on timestamps. That would help me. Turn on timestamps. Okay. Yeah. Some yellow in between the browns. Yeah. Oh, so you couldn't see the oranges when I flipped it. The oranges are definitely in there. But yes, I am excited and I hate waiting for things to heat up. I've been wanting to do, I don't know, I think just walking around. So I talked about where like some of my inspiration comes from and how sometimes I'm looking for photos and to fit something that like I'm feeling to help me nail down those colors, or sometimes I just look through photos, randomly pick things like birds and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is stunning. I never would have thought to try to combine those colors. So I sort of go back and forth. The one thing I do try to do is in general, I try to, if I choose something like pastel, I try to choose something more saturated. If I choose something very warm toned, I try to pull something cool toned. I try to mix that up a bit and play. But I really, really like fall, and the leaves outside just really, really made me excited. So this was fun. Aw, I'm sorry you had a stressful evening. Stressful evenings are no fun. And I hope that everyone is doing well today, and big socially distant hugs from me to all of you. Yeah, the things, it's been stressful lately. Oh my gosh. But the youngest, his school started with Fridays virtual, but otherwise he's still in pre-K, so he's still in private school. But now they're going to have Friday mornings in person, which means that I'm not going to have two kids on Zoom at the same time, which I know I'm very lucky that it was only 1 day a week that it was that, but it was just very hard. Very, very, very hard. Hello, I'm so glad so many people were able to join. I often try to do the die-along ones in the evening, but yeah, it's scheduling filming time is harder right now. But I do have plans to do some more like voiceover work and things like that. And a lot of my time, honestly, right now is spent on packing up the Hanukkah menus, and I'm very excited. I did the hardest part first. So the Hanukkah samplers, I guess there's going to be more like 10 or 11 videos, but each night of Hanukkah, I do a new yarn dyeing video. And then there are samplers that have a mini to open each night that was dyed in each of the videos. But to bring the samplers up to 100 grams versus being 80 grams, there's 2 bonus mini skeins in each of them that were dyed as like a leave no dye behind or a swatch or a bonus of some kind in the videos. And so those are the most complicated to wrap up because you want to make sure that someone doesn't get to the exact same one. And some nights there might be like, 3 full skeins dyed at bonus, and other times there might just be like 4 mini skeins dyed. And so I did those first. And so now it should be fairly smooth sailing. Yeah. The live streams tend to be, my videos can be long and I can talk a lot, but in the live streams there's a lot more of just like the waiting for things to heat up, and can lean over and pull on the stove. Oh my goodness. But Yeah, we have to replace so many things right now. Our garbage disposal broke, but it broke a couple months ago. With the pandemic, we didn't want anyone to like come in, and so like it had a slow descent where like you had to like really like wait for it, and we used to not, before we lived here, we used to not have a garbage disposal, so we're fairly used to it, but it's just I'm sitting here with it right behind me, so I'm like, oh, I need to do that. I need to take care of that. Oh yeah, what else has been going on? We had a new Dye Pot Weekly this morning. I used the same spray solutions from Friday's video on a soft blank to show a way that I really like using spray bottles. And yeah, it's just a fun, simple video. And then I will be using those in one more video on Friday for something really, really beautiful and special. But it's not looking that steamy yet. Good morning. All that was missed was the swatch. Okay. I love that like I'm sitting like 4 feet away from the pan and I'm coming in peering at the computer to see how hot things are. So what I'm going to do now is shrink that, and I actually think I'm going to pull up my leaves. I did 2 photos this month, mainly because I'll be honest, I felt like I couldn't arrange the leaves that I found in my yard prettily enough. And so I wasn't really that thrilled with how that, and I was like, oh, they're going to dry out, and yeah. And so then I was like, and I found this photo, like that other photo that I just loved, and so I thought I just did 2. All right, but I'm going to hide my face. Oh, but before I guess we go further, when it comes to acid dyes, you, just like with food coloring, you really need to make sure you're using a protein-based yarn. So we're using a superwash wool nylon blend, Knit Pick Stroll today. So that is important. This won't work on cellulose fibers or completely synthetic acrylic and polyester fibers. But even though I'm using acid dyes today, you can do something very similar to what I'm going to do using food coloring. Whether you make your own crystals using citric acid or sugar, with food coloring, you can make your own sprinkles, so that way you can mix whatever colors you want. Or if you find Kool-Aid in the right colors, or if you even just mix liquid food coloring and apply it in patches. So there are food safe things that you can do that are very, very similar. You gotta move to your laptop because you can see the colors better. Oh, you guys. So the base I'm using today is just Knit Pick Stroll. Sometimes I try to mix it up with yarn bases in these, but yeah, I wanted to stick with the one that I know the best today. And we are now going to get suited up. So I will be all nice and safe. Okay, and I'm going to hide my face. And I need to debate if I want to aliquot the dyes out or go, oh, I don't have a yarn mop. I am shaking a friend from the other burner. This was what remains of our color swatching. I moved everything around. Okay, let me think. I need a mop. And I need a zip tie. I need a zip tie. La-di-la-di-loo. Okay. And I'm going to add some vinegar. I normally pre-soak with no vinegar. So, yeah.
Okay, and where is my this? Okay, I have a yarn mop here that is going to be on top of the other pan, which is technically on, so it'll warm up. So I made sure to not have very much liquid, or to have a lot of liquid in that yarn mop. And I'm not dealing with the dyes yet, so I removed the mask. But the mop is, so I'm going to be putting powder on. I might touch the powder in here, or else I will take my gloves and wipe it on that other yarn mop. It's slightly off camera. Okay. Let's get these ready. And gloves. Okay, so I want to start with the lightest color, and that is the yellow. And the reason for that is that it's always easy to add more color, but it's hard to remove it. Okay, so this is the golden poppy. And coming in, there's at least 16 cups of water in here. And part of that is because I want the colors to be able to move through and spread. Okay. Ooh. And so in our swatching, this color was fairly orange. And it is fairly orange. But it also is giving us some of that yellow. And so I'm okay if this spreads a little further than maybe we might want, because we will cover a lot up. And I'm also okay with there being like just some orange of it in there. And I'm actually considering adding more. I think I want some more. Because we're going to cover it up, and this will give us some more like layers and dimension in everything. And so it'll make our green more, and we're down, bringing some yellow down. You see a lot of the orange, but this, as much as I love that honey mustard color, this is more of the hue I think I really wanted. Okay. Now let's go and increase our orange. So this is our Saffron Spice. Which is going to be a deeper orange color. But just layering it in here. And it's okay if you have speckles. It's okay if things blend. I am just sort of painting my forest here. And then we will bring in, so we're sort of painting our leaves. And then we'll come in with sort of the, what is remaining green. Okay, here is our plum dandy. And I'm focusing mostly on areas that don't really have any pigment yet. I think I want to intensify that. But this is just our base here. And I am drying off my hands before going back into any of the containers, just so that way I don't add some of one color to another bin or anything like that. And I am okay if we end up with some speckling on here, but you can see we're really not that low immersion. We have, it's really hard for me to see that thing, but we will be moving the yarn and layering colors more and more through here. So yeah, I'm actually really happy with this so far. But don't worry, there's lots of like white left for adding more. The only thing, here we go. Got a little bit down there. Okay. And so you can get a sense, I just picked up and moved the yarn mop a little bit. So the colors are all really pretty on there. Okay. And now I need to dry my hand. And I'll come check the chat in a minute. Okay. I really like where it is right now. And I'm curious about something. Oh, I'll just come in. With our bits of green. The thing I'm aiming for here is to add the color randomly, but the caveat here is that I want to, the goal is to try to have some green in all the way across. So whether it's like here then there, you know, the goal is to have some areas everywhere. And we've got some speckles from, I think that Plum Dandy in here. Oof, I really like what's happening down there. I think that overall, I'm going to want the color saturation up, but I don't mind if things muddy more. And I think I'm actually going to hold off on a brown. I think we're going to get elements of brown in here, especially from mixing the green with those oranges. I'm going to reduce that heat. Here's our mop so far. Okay, I'm actually going to turn off, it's about to go off the first skein. And let's see. I am really excited. I think that we will get, I'm loving, I'm not, hold on, I'll wash up and then I'll come talk.
Okay. Oof, I actually really like it right now. I think that, so I think I especially love it even without the green, but I did want to pull that green in to just not have it. I didn't want something to feel, I think it's feeling fall, and so I'm very happy about that. I didn't want it to feel sunset, which doing mixtures of like oranges and reds can often go very sunset. And so it's definitely feeling fall to me, and I'm really, really excited about that. I do want, I think, the tonal pigmentation to keep going. So we'll see if things like, if it ends up with everything a lot more muted because the colors blend, I'm also okay with that. I think it'll feel very fall. So if we end up with a brown that has like orange and yellow and green and sort of purple undertones, I'm okay with that as well. Thank you. Oh, good. The pile of fallen leaves. That's exactly what I'm going for. Wait, you took, Carol, you took Dharma and they still have what? Oh, so I ordered, when I placed my order a few months ago, I guess it was in stock. There wasn't a lot out of stock until after I placed my order, I guess. So they do, oh, okay, so they do have it back in stock. Yes, the golden poppy is beautiful. And thank you. I wanted, my fear whenever I play with fall colors is that it ends up, like you could say fall, or you could have it be like a summer sunset, or something like that as well. And so that's why I thought that if I brought the greens and those more like Cabernet, even though we're using Plum Dandy, but those Cabernet undertones, or not undertones, but if we brought those tones in as well, we could bring some of the like deepness of fall versus like the brightness of the sky. So what techniques would you use to avoid that or to make a more balanced yarn? So if you're making socks, one isn't missing a color or speckles. So one of the things about this technique that I'm doing right now is that we're going for something that isn't repeating. So if you want like really good balance, I think that what's hard here is that I'm dyeing 3 skeins of yarn. And so if I want there to still be some randomness in where the colors are placed, that means that there's going to be some randomness between the different skeins. But within 1 skein of yarn, a way to bring balance in there is something I try to do is make sure that there's a little bit of every color on every round. So whether that's, so if this is our yarn, if I add like a little bit of a color here, I also make sure I have it in the middle somewhere else and the other edge somewhere else. So even if there might be more, say, green on one section, then that brings more color in the rest. So if you were doing socks, they might not feel identical, but they would still have all the same colors in there, I guess. Yeah, so, but I think that if you want the most balanced repeating colorway that is going to be sort of like the same on both ends, then I recommend doing something that is a more repeating variegated thing. So instead of randomly placing the colors, something like I did last month. Bye, honey. Something where like, if something where maybe I would do, you know, a section of the yellow orange, a section of the more orange, the Cabernet, and then I don't know if I would do the green there or what. But so doing like some more straight across sections, there would still be some variation in the like size, but it would be a lot more consistent if you're going for like those regular patches. But another thing that I do is when I'm placing the yarn in the pan, let's see. And so this is the skein of yarn. One other thing I do is I don't put it in like this, like the O, because if I do this, you see that only one side is showing up. When I lay it in the pan, I lay it like this. So that way, as I'm dyeing it, I'm covering more of the skein at a time versus covering that same section almost twice, if that makes sense. So the first color, I think I started with the golden poppy. I did Golden Poppy, then Saffron Spice, then Plum Dandy, then Forest Green, I think was my progression. When you dye 3 skeins, are they tied together? So they're put in separately. They're not tied together. I put a zip tie around each one. So there's 300 grams, and the 3 skeins are like sort of like 1, 2, 3 layered in the pan. Oh. Okay, good. I'm glad, Catherine. I'm really glad that made sense. Yeah, that was a that was a tip that I had from another dyer, because I used to, and with the first skein, when you're only dyeing 1 skein at a time, I might put it in the pot like this just because I can spread it out a lot. And so that's actually another thing. If you really want a balanced yarn with, like, especially if you want like a low level of speckles, dye 1 skein at a time, especially if you're going for socks. Like 100 grams is enough for a pair of socks. So yeah, I would do, if you're doing 1 at a time, it's a lot easier to make sure that you have like the balance and coverage that you're going for. But I'll say that even with some of my more random placement, I don't always feel like a gradient or feel, I don't always use multiple skeins, but I feel like you're more likely to see a difference between 1 skein and the next than you are within 1 skein, is what I have personally found. Now, I have a video coming up where I dyed 3 skeins in the same pot. And this is actually for my, that moving forward wrap knit along that I did. And in there was actually, I saw a difference in the dye lots between the 3 skeins. And so even though they were dyed at the same time, one of them had, was a lot more subtle. One of them had a bit more variation of tone, and one was sort of somewhere in the middle. And so rather than trying to blend them, I decided to intentionally put it with, like, go from the least variation to the most variation in the wrap. So as far as a gradient goes, it's like so subtle that I don't think on camera it really picks up, but you can see the difference in person, but it's super minor. So I thought that was interesting. Being layered, does the bottom skein get less dye? So the skeins are 1, 2, 3. So there's not one on the very bottom. So if this is a skein, there are 1 and then 2 and 3. So this part, the part facing me, is on the bottom, but you'll see, I'm going to flip in about a little less than 2 minutes. I'll flip, and so then you can see. And so in general, when I do something like this, I flip the yarn at least, or I add dye to the yarn at least 4 times. So I will add the yarn, or I'll add dye to side A, flip it, add it to side B, and then I flip it inside out and add color to this side and then that side. And then depending on the technique, I might even move it and add more dye depending on what kind of colorway or everything I'm going for. There's enough water in there that we might not need quite as many flips, but we'll see. Yeah, so one thing I haven't done, which I think would be fun to do, would be to layer the yarn. So I've done this with roving, where like you have dye, you add a little bit of roving, add more dye. It would be fun to sort of stack yarn in a pan like that. It could be really, really fun. So that is something I'd like to explore at some point. I'm trying to think if I have any announcements. Ooh. So I finally got it. I'm not on the new computer, but I got a new computer. I just have to start getting it set up. The problem is it's big. I think we underestimated the size of my screen, or mismeasured, because when we bought it, it's big. It's a big laptop. So I'm not sure how it will actually work for streaming, if it can like securely fit on a chair. But I will probably do like a stream test with it at some point. But first I need to get just reused to editing. because I'm swapping my editing software. Back to what I used to use. So I used to use Premiere Pro because I had it from work, and I used that a long time ago. And then I don't need all that it has to offer. Like, it's got way too many features for what I personally need. But then I swapped to something that I actually don't really like very much. I mean, it's fine, but it's not my favorite. And so with the new computer, I was like, I'm going to swap back and then see. Given how much editing I'm doing now, so you can see we've got a bunch of white here. Oop, that's hot. But the colors are actually really well set. So I'm flipping this over, and we should see similar, not the same, but similar amounts of color. Okay, so that one has some more. And then there's still some like white patches in the middle. My goal whenever I do these flips is to try to expose as much of the whites as I can each time. So as I'm layering this down, I'm going to push this back in towards the middle because I want, I want to be able to add the color. And some of it depends on just how much dye you add in various parts and things like that. But we're going to get suited back up. But here's the status of our yarn mop, where I'm wiping my fingers. And here's the status of our swatch friend, which is now cooling off. But because I gave this more time for those colors to set, that's why they didn't just completely spread. If I were to move it sooner, then they would spread. So, okay. I need mask, then glasses, then gloves. Okay, I do not like, the respirator, it gets sweaty in here at times. Okay. All right. Here is our golden poppy. And once again, I'm adding this mostly all over. But I'm definitely focusing on these two skeins versus the third, just because of the amount of color that I see in there already. And so this one, because even though it's very orange, this is our yellow. And so that's why we're adding just a lot of it, because the other colors can layer on top. And I am going to come in with more. But before I do that, I do want to move the yarn mop again to just expose whites. And sometimes I don't mind if white is left behind or if we have pastels. Other times I care a bit more. So that is always just up to you. I'm adding a lot of this color. Okay, add the rest onto the mop. And whenever I am dealing with powder or potentially moving powder, that is always when I will be wearing my mask. Because you only get one set of lines. Okay, Saffron Spice. This one I add less of, but it is okay to layer it. And so when we were talking about balance, one way to get balance but still have some variation is to add things to the yarn but at slightly different angles. Because if you don't want it repeating
then you don't want, if you don't want the colors to repeat, then that's why you might want to add them at different angles. I think I want a little bit more, but I don't always like sticking to lines. I like moving things around like a little randomly at times, especially if I see areas where I need color, but doing strips of some kind all the way across is a really nice way there to add some balance to it. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to come in with our Plum Dandy that I need to dry off. Oh, I was looking at it and I was like, I don't see it. That's because it doesn't have a label on the lid yet. Okay. I'm just going to turn up the heat a little bit. Another thing is if you want colors to spread more, then you can, if you want colors to spread out more on the yarn, you can start with it colder, and then it'll take more time to set until you'll see less speckling. You can also add acid later in the process. Those are all things that you can do. Okay, now green. Okay, so again, I'm going for random placement, but overall I'm trying to have the colors represented, at least in part, all over. That is our goal. And I maybe want a little bit more. I need to get some new safety glasses because I can't see very well. I mean, I can see fine, but there's a little bit of a, like, halo in here. There we go. Now, I don't always recommend plopping your hands into your dye pan, but if it's, I have a sense of my pan of like how hot or not hot things can be, and so don't always do as I do. Oh dear. Okay. Let's get cleaned up and I can pop back in. But this is going well. This is going really, really well. I am really, really excited. Oh, really excited. I love just playing with powders like this. But man, I don't think I would ever be able to dye. I mean, maybe as like a challenge, I could do 100 grams or like 100 skeins in a day. I could do 100 mini skeins, but I am always just in awe of the dyers who can just do so much. Okay. I am curious with the evolution of the colors. I love it. And there'll be some blend of what the colors do beneath the surface. But what's fun here is that Plum Dandy is bringing in some blues because it's more of a purple, a pinky purple. But and then the same with that forest green, it's bringing in blues because there's so much yellow and orange on our base. It's bringing those more to the color that I wanted, and I'm thrilled. I am going to, I always try to update my stories during these streams. So you should be able to see it on Instagram and Facebook. Let's see. This. And then it's a similar picture, but so of the pictures I added into the gallery, there's a swatch, there's before the flip, the swatch, before the flip. Did it add the same picture twice? It did. I had the same picture twice, whatever. I was like, give me like before and after, and no, it's just before and before. That's fine. So let's see. What kind of mask? So I'm using a P100 half, so I think it's a half respirator because it's just like half the face. And so this is the one I use. It's from Dharma Trading Company, and I felt comfortable picking that one because I'm like, hey, it's a company that sells dye. I should trust what they recommend for safety. But I do, as I mentioned, I have a blog post which should probably be linked below. If it's not, and you're watching the replay, leave a comment and I'll make sure to add it. And I did not just the one that I use, but also some other recommendations from other indie dyers. You haven't been brave enough to speckle apply straight dye yet. You so admire my work. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm reducing. Oh, I didn't set a timer. Let me set a timer. I enjoy this like technique. It feels a lot more like finger painting, and there's more just sort of a randomness to it. Plus, I'll be honest, I don't love making stock solutions. It can be frustrating. Now, I like having stock solutions. I like having that dye on hand, but making the stocks isn't my favorite part of the process. So, yeah, I think that this is really, really just fun. Thank you. I don't always feel like I nail it. There is the, what was it last December or January or something, where it was the pine cones, and I was going pastel, and I was so pumped. And then everyone's like, it needs more purple. I'm like, it's there, I promise. And then the yarn dries, and I'm like, fine. That lavender that I could see wasn't there anymore. Like, you could barely see it in the end. So that was funny. So, thank you so much, Sylvia. I don't always feel like I've nailed it, for sure. But I think, yeah, I try to mix up the techniques. And so, but with this one, I really wanted to layer these colors and see what I could do. And we still got white here, so it's not done. There's still going to be at least one more flip. The places where, if I bring out my little paper towel thing, the place where you want to pay the most attention is around the tie. So you might have good coverage both sides and even in the middle, but usually around the tie at the very end of the pan, that's where you definitely will likely need to add more color. It is looking a lot like leaf shapes in the pot. Not necessarily intentionally, but that's what it's doing. So yes, I'm doing powdered acid dyes. I'm using Dharma acid dyes today. When it comes to acid dye brands, I absolutely love Jacquard acid dyes as well. The main reason why I like Dharma is just the pots that I have are bigger. But you can get bigger jars of Jacquard, but for this kind of technique,
I can reach in directly and I don't need to aliquot the powders, and so that's a reason why I personally like it. But in terms of color, I love the colors that Jacquard has to offer as well. Oh my gosh, I would love to have a dye studio someday. I am definitely cannot anywhere near afford it. I mean, I dream about like, yeah, I just would love to have a dedicated space for dyeing. And so, yeah, that isn't also my kitchen. But, you know, the kitchen is where a lot of people get started, and then people end up setting up like studios or building things. And we don't, if we had more land, then conceivably we could look at like a shed kind of situation, but we just don't have, like, my yard isn't very big. And so we don't have the space to set something like that up. And my garage is not insulated or anything, and so it wouldn't work very well. It might work fine, except for the fact that I film as well, and so it would be really hard for me to film in there. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, everyone. But yeah, I would love to like have some dreams. I would love to have a studio. I would love to have a space where people could come and visit. Yeah, it would just be, it would be awesome. I would love to like meet people. Oh my gosh. You watch. Yeah, like oh my gosh. Before we settled back in, like, we're outside of Boston, but before we ended up back here, one of the places where we almost ended up was State College, Pennsylvania. And there it is much, even though it's a university town, it's much, much more rural. And so like properties are bigger, houses are bigger, and like the house that like we might have bought there had like a kitchenette in the basement, and it would have been like a family room. But I have a feeling like I could have converted it into my studio. And so sometimes I just think like I'm much happier being out here. State College was lovely, but we have family here, and like, you know, and I didn't like being like probably 2 planes away from everyone that we want to visit. But sometimes I just think back to that house and be like, man, I could have taken over the whole basement, and there were like there would have been like a room for yarn storage and a room for an office, and like it was a huge basement. But then who knows? It probably would have flooded every spring or something like that. So, a retreat would be so fun. I think that the problem is that it would be really hard to do like a dyeing retreat somewhere, just because of like concerns about mess and stains and something that in like a place where people didn't own. So like there is like a community center in my neighborhood that in theory, like if I wanted to do like a neighborhood like knitting club or teach regular classes or something, I could, but I wouldn't be able to do yarn dyeing just because of the like mess concern. And so yeah, and also the space is pretty small. Yeah, State College was beautiful. And when the realtor was showing us around, he's like, oh, a lot of people will, like with the basement for football games, they'll like Airbnb, like they'll list them on Airbnb for, because there's so many people that come into town for football, which like we wouldn't have been interested, that wasn't like a selling point or anything to us, but yeah, it's just funny to think about we learned a lot about real estate and stuff while we were going around. Yeah, oh my gosh. Gigi made it. I think she's got like a retreat in Greece this spring. I have no idea like if it's gonna happen or what, but like when they announced that, I was like, I want to go on a knitting cruise. That would be amazing. But I was like, but I can't afford it. Not only that, but I can't. It'd be hard on my family for me to be like, okay, I'm gonna go away for like a week and a half. Oh, that's amazing. I would like. Sometimes we don't have a basement here, and that's the one thing. If we had a basement, then I would probably look at like renovating it somehow into being a studio for me. But we don't have that, so but yeah. So sometimes I'm like, oh, like so when we dream about building a house, I'm like, well, we put like a whole in-law suite in the basement that is basically my filming studio, but then like. If we were ever able to sell the house, then there's like a reason for having like a second kitchen. So, yeah. So if that was a knitting cruise versus a dyeing cruise, but oh my gosh, it would be so cool. Oh my gosh, that's like a crochet cruise. That just sounds like so fun. Yeah, there was a. Vogue Knitting had a Boston retreat, but like when I looked, it wasn't something that like it's something where you had to like book and stay where they were staying. There wasn't something where like, oh, I could just go and be like a local participant. So that's the thing is the like hopefully I can start doing things like Rhinebeck or like go to Vogue Knitting in New York or maybe go like out west or something, but I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So like a long weekend is something that I think that Keith and I can probably figure out. But 25 seconds. But one of the goals for 2020 was for me to start traveling again. Oh, I love this. Oh, my heart. Oh. I am just so excited. And so the saturation versus the yarn mop is so nice. Oh, I'm glad I ended up not adding the brown specifically. I think it would be fine with the brown, but I don't think it needs it to feel leafy and fall. And there we go. Okay, we are going to flip again. And so just moving it already, you can see that we do still have some lightness. So when I'm opening this up, I'm sort of flipping it inside out a little bit and also moving the tie. There's going to need to be another flip, I can tell. But I'm not flipping it completely inside out because I'm like, oh, okay, it's a lot on the like interior. Let's sort of, what is that doing? Let's just sort of move and see what we can access. So yeah, flipping it inside out. And the other thing I'm going to do for this next stage is add, I want to add more water, I think. Oh, I forgot. I'll use that for it. Okay, I've got some pre-soak with some, oh dear, not by the computer, some vinegar in here. So I'm going to add that and bring up the volume. And then I will increase the heat so we can get nice and hot. So before, I have been starting with the lightest color and working my way up. This time, I think
I want to start with a little bit of the green and the plum and add just a little bit of those over here, and then go in, and I'm going to go back a little bit backwards this time because I don't want to overdo it. And I think that if I add a lot of the orange at first, then I might not add any more of the other colors. And so this is telling me where I might need some of that. And so I think that that's the way I'm going to do it. But I'm going to let things warm up a bit before we come back in. So yeah, the one thing I miss, and I've said this before, the one thing it's not the only thing I miss about living outside of Chicago. I miss Bat 17, which if you're ever in Evanston, downtown Evanston, one of the best burgers I've ever had. It's amazing. So I miss going to Bat 17 a lot. But I also just miss being able to just hop on the L and go to Vogue Knitting and not having to like get a hotel or anything like that. So yeah, I miss that. There's definitely like yarn crawls and stuff that happen out here. But yeah, I feel like the big things will go to New York. So that's hard. You have a 3-car uninsulated garage that you've been thinking about fitting out, but floods and heavy rain. Rain and insects are definitely a concern. Yeah, the garage is the garage is still probably original to when it's been recited. It was recited before we got this, but it's an original structure to the neighborhood. Oh man, I just want to see my parents, and they're local, but they're high risk, so I can't see them, and so that's what I miss the most. So I lived in Bloomington, Indiana for 10 years as a kid. So like, I guess for me, all of the elementary school and the beginning of middle school. And then I moved up to Ann Arbor. So I was born in Massachusetts, but I've spent, actually no, I've now spent most of my life in Massachusetts. But then I lived in the Midwest for a while. And so, yeah, when Keith did his postdoc, that's when we were in Illinois. But I guess I've only ever filmed ChemKnits in Massachusetts or Illinois. But how many? I guess only 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I guess I've filmed. Did I film any? I don't know if I filmed any videos. Really, I definitely had blog posts in that first apartment, but ChemKnits has had many different locations. Yeah, I was in Bloomington in the mostly the 90s, very late 80s, early 90s was when I was there. But yeah, Bloomington is absolutely gorgeous. Like I haven't been back. I went back after we moved a handful of times for. The last time I went back, it was for my friend's bat mitzvah. And I was a couple years older than her, so I must have been in high school. Just started high school. And I went back, and I don't know why it was just me that went. I don't know why my parents didn't go. Because a family friend picked me up from the airport and drove me to the airport. So I don't know why I did that by myself. I should ask my mom. You're visiting Bloomington right now? Oh, fun! Oh my gosh. Yeah, oh man. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. You lived in Bloomington in the 70s. Yeah, that's before my time.
But I mean, so it's funny that I still feel so young, but I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be 37. And then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be 37 in like 2 months. You have a child, Danny, can't leave the country except for special reasons. Yeah. oh, okay. I think we're warming up, so I can get back to the stove. But oh man, I loved Indiana. But then I had the weird where am I from complex, because when I lived in Indiana, I was from Massachusetts, and then when I lived in Michigan, I was from I had moved up from Indiana. But then, so then when I came back to Massachusetts for college, I was like, I don't know where I'm from. I guess I'm from Massachusetts. But now I've been back in the state, and yeah, I've lived here most of my life. So, that I can say. And I have tons of family out here. Okay, let's go in with the plum first. Okay. Oh, that was a lot. So I don't want to overdo it with the plum and the spruce. Okay, so now with more water, things can definitely spread out a little bit more. And this isn't to say that I won't add even more plum and spruce, but this is just where I'm starting. Yeah, and so it's just about looking and seeing and thinking about that color balance that I want. But you can see now when I'm tapping it, things are definitely spreading further. Just because I have so much more water in here. And so I'm also trying to be a little careful. I don't want the colors to go too pastel. That is something that I'm not fearful of it. But I don't want, we want saturation. Whoops. And as we say, saturation, this is our Saffron Spice. And I feel like there was the problem now is that it's harder to see where things land. There's a big clump that I saw somewhere that kind of worries me. I don't really see where it went. That's the thing, you don't want a clump that's going to have to be rinsed out later. Okay. I'm going to reduce the heat again, and now I'm coming in with the golden poppy. And focusing at first
Oop, that might have been a little heavier than I wanted. Focusing at first on the areas that I see that are white. And letting that yellow really spread through. And I have to move this down. Okay, and so I can, in moving this, get a sense of where I might want some more. The nice thing with the golden poppy is that since it brings us that orange, overdoing it isn't a huge issue. Of course, then, you know, it's like you add some and I'm like, I have no idea where it is. So that's the only downside, is that I can't exactly see it. There we go. Okay. We're now going to wait. Everything is covered. And as we pick it up again, we will sort of gently flip and move. But I love what's happening here. Oh man, this is so pretty. Sorry, I'm tuning my own horn, but I really, really, really like it. Oh, okay, I set a timer and I can reduce it. I could put a lid on, but it's fun to be able to see the color as we're doing this. And I'm gonna have to keep an eye on the time because I'm gonna have to go to the bus stop. Oh, let me see. I missed something. Oh, funny. Oh, Julie. My birthday's the 13th of December. So yeah, I didn't have Christmas growing up because I'm Jewish, but now we do Christmas because of my husband and his family and stuff. But yeah, so I know actually, but my dad's Jewish, but his parents aren't, and so we may actually have gone to California, so I may have actually had a Christmas when I was really little, but I am not sure. Thank you. I am really, really happy. And so I think one reason why I went with the two photos today is that I wanted to pull these leaf colors into my yarn. I really wanted to pull those pictures. But, in here, this is a leaf pile on like one of my aluminum steam pans. And so I didn't want to have it like with the white. I wanted the colors to be more blended, sort of like here. So that was just really fun. But I look forward to seeing what you all create. So don't forget, this is a die along. You're not obligated to, obviously, but you are invited to replicate exactly what I'm making or do your own version in any way that you like, inspired by one of these two photos. And then I will pick a bunch of the submissions and include them in the recap, so that way people can see the kinds of colors that
people create inspired by one photo, or two photos, but you know, one photo, one theme. Yeah, and so the two ways you can use the hashtag ChemKnits Dialogue on Instagram, or you can go to my Facebook feed and use. Or you can go to my Facebook feed, and I believe that the picture right now is pinned is the tree picture, and so you can use that. Reply to that with a photo comment, and then yeah, again, I'll pick pictures and give you credit, and so yeah, it is a lot of fun. What colors would you suggest if I were to do this with Kool-Aid? Well, the only orange and yellow that I have personally found from Kool-Aid are lemonade and orange, which are definitely brighter. But you could tone the colors down. You could tone that orange down and make it more of a burnt orange by adding little bits of grape or something to it. But with Kool-Aid, I actually recommend that you get liquid drops of some kind, whether you know it's a dollar store that's like red, yellow, green, and blue, or you know if you get Color Right or something, some kind of liquid drops to supplement the Kool-Aid. So that way you can add more color, because the one green that I have with Kool-Aid is a much it's more like a yellow green, like a lime color, versus a deep green. So you can, with creative mixing, get to colors like this with Kool-Aid. But it's a lot easier if you have the liquid drops, because then you can intensify the color without upping the citric acid a lot. And my favorite DIY sprinkle for food coloring was done using the table sugar. I liked that and the results from that the best. The citric acid sprinkles I made were nice, but you don't always necessarily want a ton of acid when you're adding a lot of color, and so that's why the sugar will wash out. That's why I personally liked the sugar. And I just filmed one trying salt, and don't use salt. Don't use salt. The colors, there's a chance I didn't have enough acid in the pre-soak, but the colors just did not, the colors spread, and I didn't get sharp speckles. So how would I recommend doing something like this with liquid? So the way I would do this with liquid is, this has water in it. Okay, so if this is my pan, the way I would do this with liquid would be fairly similar, but I would make up concentrated stocks and then add, I would add it, probably if I was doing liquid, I would use like squeeze bottles, and so, you know, sometimes I have stripes, but I might, instead of adding stripes, I might squirt like a ketchup blobs almost, like in various areas, and then do another color. Versus adding lines, I would go for more like little areas, whether you want to do a bigger sort of pour or add the liquid a little bit slower. So that's how I would do this with liquid, to get a colorway very similar to this technique-wise. Yay! I'm glad that the sugar sprinkle thing worked. And the nice thing about the sugar sprinkles also is that most people, like, in terms of accessibility, most people can find sugar and food coloring. It can be harder for people to find citric acid in person sometimes. So I know that when I first, I was getting citric acid because I was making like the fizzy bath ball type things. That's why I needed citric acid. So that's what I initially bought it for many, many years ago. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of birthdays all together. Could this be done with Wilton food colors? Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's a video, I'll leave no dye behind, that I did with leftover DIY sugar sprinkles, and I think the colors were yellow, blue, and brown. And the way that they layered, and I layered them very similarly to what I'm doing right here. And so I think the colors weren't the same, but the layering was a very, very similar effect to using that like homemade powder. My pleasure. There are a few videos with it, and I've made the sprinkles both with like the Wilton's Violet like icing tub and with Color Right. I like doing it with Color Right a little better. It was easier to mix. And I think you could add more liquid than what I did in the videos, but just you might need to let it dry out a little longer. What you don't want when you're doing it is for the sugar to dissolve completely, because then when it dries out, you might get more like something more like rock candy, which of course then you could like pulverize and use. But you know, you want like the dye to sort of coat the sugar, but you don't want the sugar to dissolve completely. But I mean, I haven't tried. Initially, I thought the way you made sprinkles was by dissolving water, sugar, and food coloring, and then like baking it to let it dry out. I had no idea that it was just it was a lot easier to do than I thought it was. I thought it was going to take like overnight or hours or something, but it was like 30 minutes and I could use it. And so that was really, really easy. And I was very, very happy with it. So, 48 seconds. I'm excited to flip the yarn. So all of this, when I'm sitting here chatting, like this is the stuff I usually cut out. And often these days, not always, but oftentimes after the like third or fourth flip, that's when I'm like, all right, let's speed this up. And then I'll put on like I'll put on some kind of podcast or something often when I'm doing the last flipping and dyeing. Ooh, you are warm. So let's see how we're doing. You cool off a little bit. Thank you. Not bad. There's still some lightness in here. How's this side? This side is looking pretty good. So let's move the tie. Okay, because we see in here. So that's not a lot. Let's see. So the thing here is that some lightness in our yellow is fine, but I also see some areas that are too pastel. So what we don't want here is to cover up the other areas where I want to add more color with other. I want to leave the areas where I want to add more color as exposed as possible. And also don't want to tangle the yarn. And so a thing that you could do at this stage as well, as I'm lifting, so I'm sort of lifting and then deciding how to lay the yarn to best spread and expose those areas that I need to spread. This is a good spot, or time to come in with a liquid, potentially. So I could have done a colorway very, very similar to this, waiting with our golden poppy until the end. Or I could have dyed I could have dyed the yarn all over with golden poppy and then come in and add those other colors closer to the end. So that way we wouldn't be dealing with some white left behind or anything like that. So there are options and choices that you can make along the way. This time, I think I'm mostly coming in with our golden poppy.
And I'll come back in again as well. It's hard to get yellows saturated without overdoing it. Maybe I'll do some saffron. I love Saffron Spice. So what's funny now is I do not have a complete collection of Dharma acid dyes. I'm approaching it because I really like playing with premixed colors, like a lot. But you absolutely do not need to own all of these as premixed colors. That is absolutely not necessary. Because you can mix, it's harder if you want to do a powdered technique, but you can mix most of what you need. Okay, I am not going to wait very long. I'm going to give it a little bit of time. I think I'm even going to take my mask off because I think, I really like the mop too. I think I want to flip it again. And this time, since I'm basically just sticking with those two colors, it doesn't really matter. There we go. If the colors spread a bit. So this one is looking pretty good. There I want some color. Now where is the tie? Here it is. Okay, I see a spot there. This is pretty good, but I do have a spot like right there where I want a little bit more. And so yeah, this is how at the end game I come in. And you can always finish the yarn and then come back and add color in areas where you feel needs it. So pretty. Okay. Again, I'm going to give it like a minute. I mean, and by a minute, I mean not that long. So we can come in and open and check, and that one's fine. Sometimes the middle one is the one where I end up wanting to add the most. Coming in with a little bit of green. So now, because I added a little more green, I'm not, I've got it in sort of like an awkward way, but I'm not going to move it. I'm going to be very, very careful. Because if I were to move it, then the green and the orange would blend, and then we would get more wash of brown, which is not a problem exactly. Just not quite what we're going for. Okay. But I'm feeling like we're pretty close. I'm not calling it yet. Let's set a timer for 6 minutes. But
it's easy to keep going and adding more and more and more. But what I don't want today is to regret not adding enough color. And this colorway, our yarn mop here, is gorgeous and has all of these colors on it, but with white patches, and that's beautiful and fine. I just wanted this to feel more saturated. And so that's what we're going for. Now, someone asked me once about trying to use like red and orange and yellow leaves to dye yarn, like with natural dye. And I don't know how well it would work. Certainly, you could probably get some kind of beautiful yellow or something with leaves. But just because you see a pigment in a flower or a leaf doesn't mean that you can extract that pigment and get that to bind to yarn. So, yes, I'm not. It's not something I would go out of my way to try, but yeah. I mean, I don't think that you would get, like, when you look at the beautiful leaves that I picked, we would not get this range of color from them if I collected a lot and tried to extract it from them. Whoops. There we go. Yes, Carol, I did. Oh, no, I haven't tried it. Yeah, I guess I told you that, right? Yeah. No, I haven't tested that yet. It's definitely on my list of things to try to play with that. I actually have another idea of something that I might try soon. So, yeah, I have that sitting over there. I'm really excited to see it dry too. The thing I always get nervous about this stage is, like, I love what's happening in the pan, but sometimes if I don't push it far in the pan enough, then I'm like, oh man, it's a little more muted than I wanted. I wanted the colors more saturated. So knowing that where to stop, especially when it's colors that I'm not super familiar with, can be hard sometimes. Yes, I use Wilton Gel Colors a lot. Not as much anymore, but I've used the gel colors a lot. I like, for videos, I like using, I guess I've transitioned over the years more from using the gel colors, and I have a bunch just over there. I think I have all of the gel icing colors that they have. I've transitioned from that to using Wilton Colorite because it is so much easier to mix. The icing colors are pretty difficult to dissolve in water. Not difficult, but it just takes time. You have to let it sit in the warm water and stir, and it's harder to measure out the exact same amount, whereas like it's a lot easier to do 10 drops. And so that's one reason why I transitioned with Wilton more to Colorite from the gel icing colors. But the gel icing colors are gorgeous and work great. So, but yeah, they're, gosh, like there's definitely a lot towards the beginning of Dye Cut Weekly. I use those more. I forget when I first tried Colorite. I forget the first time I tried that. But yeah, the Colorite is definitely my favorite food coloring. And you know what I have a lot of? I have a lot of mixing. I have a lot of live streams where I would take 2 different colors of Wilton's icing color and sort of randomly pick colors, and we combine them half and half and then see what kind of colors we got, which was a lot of fun. And that's something I would love to do more of in general, but the plan was to do more of those like mystery, like pick the colors and mix things together streams. The problem is that just having the kids home from school makes it harder. Yeah, it can be hard. There's no problem asking questions about like have I ever tried things, because I think there's like 900 videos on my channel and a combination of like dyeing and live streams and unboxings and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot. So maybe the thing to search the channel for would be icing. Yes, I have done some natural dyes. I do have a whole playlist of dyeing yarn with natural dyes. So if you go to like the main channel page and then playlists, I have tried both colors I've extracted from my yard myself, and then also some natural extracts that you can purchase or that were even sent to me from a US-based company. So yeah, I think acid dyes are, and when I say acid dyes, that includes food coloring, because food coloring is technically a kind of acid dye. It's just not developed for dyeing fiber. So my advice for people is, if you want to have a shop, I recommend you go for commercial dyes, hands down, just because they're more professional. But I wear, like, all winter I wear items that I dyed with food coloring a decade ago. So there is that. All right. Let's see. Ooh. There's some lightness in areas, but I like it. I don't want to lose some of this is the problem with yellows, is that any yellow, if you go super saturated, will become orange. It's sort of the way that cookie crumbles, but I am feeling pretty satisfied, I think. I am happy. All right, I am going to move this. I'm going to leave the heat on, I think, for another, I don't know, 15 minutes, just because. And then what I'm going to do is set up a steamer basket to steam set this, but I will do that once we're done. This is our yarn mop. This is the remnant from our swatching at the beginning, which has cooled off. This is beautiful. So this combined like all of the different hues that I was considering for this video, and actually is very fall, even with that pink. Oof, this is so, so pretty. Where can I guess I'm going to set you back where you are. Okay, and I will, okay, I think the way I'll do this is I'll set up this, because I have to go pick up Lucas. So I'm like, okay, I think what I'll do is I'll set up the steamer basket, but not turn it on. And then I'll turn it on after he's home. That's the way to do it. Although actually, I might have a little bit of time. So maybe I'll just do it now. Sorry for the banging. Okay. And this is where I get creative as I put things places. But I have to say, doing these yarn mops like this is hands down one of my favorite ways to create colors. And no matter how much I try, oh dear, that was not good. No matter how much I try to do it on purpose, I just can't do it on purpose very well at all. Okay, you are going over to the sink now. Okay, you are just going to sit in the sink. That is fine. That is a safe place for you to hang out. Because I did not mean to literally dump it in. Okay. And where are you going to go? And let's not trip on the webcam. And I'll sit down and chat a little more. Okay. I was thinking about the dyes and everything. And I'm going to go wash hands and then come back. so excited with this colorway. It is very fall, not sunset. I am so happy. What was I going to say? Kudos for... Oh my goodness. No, I always wear a respirator. Always, always, always wear a respirator and highly advocate respirator masks. And I had some questions like, because everyone has masks now because of the pandemic, people were like, oh, can we use like our like cloth masks for dyeing yarn? And I'm like, no, please use a respirator. Please use something that has a particle filter on it, so that way like the particles can't get into your lungs. And I mean, you don't want any kind of particle if you're like doing a lot of woodwork and things like that. You just want to protect your lungs. Ooh, I don't think I've ever tried Chef Master food coloring. Thank you guys so much. The swatch one is really, really fun too. A lot of times I dye with intent. Sometimes I like to see where the yarn wants to go, and then sometimes that creates magic. Yeah, and actually doing some of the swatching, that crude swatching in some of the old videos, that actually really, really inspired me to play around with other color combinations, because whichever I did, there was one that was like green with these pinks and purples in it, and it just turned out so, like, I absolutely loved it, and I was so surprised by how much I loved it. And so doing that without trying to get as much coverage and saturation is a lot of fun, and I really, really love as well. But yeah, so I started, gosh, I think with my original, as soon as I started dyeing in live streams, that's when I started doing recaps after. Because I guess with all of my videos, I always like to include, maybe not some of the very oldest ones that are very cringy, but I like to include the finished dry yarn, because that's what, like, you can see this all you want, but you want to know what the yarn looks like. And so that is something that, like, I started doing back then, and it made sense to do that for the live streams as well, so that way I could share how it actually looks. And then it's also just a nice little recap, so then you can try to go back and watch the live stream. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much. I think I'm going to head out. If, you know, and I'm challenging all of you to dye some yarn inspired by the pictures that I've selected today. Share your submissions on Instagram with the hashtag ChemKnits Dye-Along, or share it on Facebook. Look for the tree picture and then reply with a comment on there. And then in mid-November, I'll pull pictures and share them in the recap. Now, if I've already published the recap and so you missed that timing, don't worry. Still share the pictures and use the hashtag. I'd love to see it. And I know other people might love to see it too. So then you can search the hashtag and then see like all the different kinds of colors people have created over the last, I guess, 2 years we've been doing this. And this is so much fun. I absolutely love getting to push myself with color and share this with all of you. And I really appreciate you tuning in. Please subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. The biggest way you can support the content here is by subscribing, having those notifications on, liking, commenting, interacting with these videos is the best way to help the channel and ChemKnits grow. But I do also have Patreon, and I have an Etsy shop and things like that. I do have affiliate links, so if you want to get the things that I use to try it yourself, I always have tons of links in the video description. But watching and engaging with the videos is the best way to support me and the channel. So thank you all so much for all of your support. Yes, thumbs ups. Yes, thank you so much. I hope that you guys all have a wonderful day. I'm so happy that I know some of you watching are on the other side of the pond and stuff, and so I think it's really nice that when I can shift the timing up so that way you guys can join. Oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Oh, but yes, all right. I am going to go clean up as much as I can for to do afternoon first grade. Put on my other hat as a semi first grade attempt. Yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will chat with you all soon. Bye. Let's try this out.